Hey, what's up and welcome back to Interpreting the Scares! That's right everybody, we're traveling right along on our daily journey through the nightmares with the second film in the Insidious franchise with Insidious Chapter 2. Insidious Chapter 2 continues on with the story revolving around the Lambert family. But instead of focusing on the child, this time we get a stronger focus on the father who is now possessed. We also get a deeper look at the further and Elise's posthumous hold on everything. Man, this one is interesting. In one aspect, I find this film to be rough and a bore. In another aspect, I love what they did for the sequel and find an element of it to be incredibly clever. This is an example of a horror franchise that, even though I personally didn't love the first film, it made a lot more sense as a standalone horror film that not only told a complete story from beginning to end, but the elements of it that left it open for debate helped it feel that much more creepy in just the right light. The ending specifically made you feel a certain way because, they saved their son, but now Josh was essentially damned. End of film, him getting possessed wasn't a stinger for part 2. It was supposed to be this bittersweet thing that stayed with you a while after watching it. But part 2 essentially takes it and says, that's gonna be our primary focus on to continue with the story. But even though I didn't love this movie, I do love the third act, and I'll try to explain why without revealing too much. This film features sort of a deep dive into Josh's past and the history of that, black wedding dress wearing evil old woman seen in the first film before she was a ghost. And before she was a ghost, she was this serial killer person that takes nods from Psycho. And parts of that are compelling, but mostly I just prefer to see Psycho if they're going to go that route, but it allowed the real connection to the further to take place, and it's that connection that's so much more compelling than the first film, because in this second chapter, it says that there is no element of time anchoring these people in the further, and so it connects and even explains events of the first film that didn't initially make any sense to this movie, and said that these weird things that were happening in the first film happened because of the second. You just didn't know it yet. And I love that about this movie. That's what makes this one stand out so much, and that's ultimately what allowed Elise to stay in the film franchise even though she died at the end of the first. As far as negatives go though, this movie basically does the thing that I didn't like in the first one, which was just show too much. I expected as much though, since that seems to be the gimmick of the franchise. Show and tell, right? As I usually say for horror though, less is more. Why? Because when you're a kid, you have nightmares. And the entire idea of nightmares is that you can conjure up the scariest thing imaginable, tailored specifically for you and nobody else, which is a part of why horror is just so subjective. The less you show, the more you allow the audience to kind of imagine how scary it actually is. The more you show, the less scary it has to be overall. Maybe that's just a supposition on my part though, but this movie it's not scary. Something that I think is a negative for this film specifically is the inclusion of the Carl character, which sort of took over where Elise left off. He was the new medium, so to speak, and I just found his character as a whole to be unnecessary. I know he helps discover facts about the serial killer case and everything, but I just kind of want to say that what he did, more so, was distract from the areas of the film that were actually done very well. I don't know. I want to say that because this is my second time watching it, I enjoyed it more than the last time, since I appreciated certain things a bit more. But at the end of the day, it's still a problematic sequel. Let's go ahead and break down my final score. From an unbiased technical vantage point, I actually want to say that this film was made just as well as the first. The biggest thing was the editing when it came down to connecting the events of the second film with the weird, mysterious events of the first, making me feel like they basically planned to do it all along, and I think that's brilliant. The cinematography was also pretty nice. Don't think I didn't notice the exorcist shot at the beginning of the film with young Elise stopping to look at the house before continuing on. My unbiased score is 66%. My biased score, or just how I felt about it overall, was surprisingly much higher. Because in general, I loved what they did with the further in this movie. I really did. And because I can't really say that there was anything about the first film that I loved, that's gonna make major brownie points in the score. My bias score is 84%. When we average out the two scores together, we come to the final rating of 75%, 75 out of 100 possible stars, or a B letter grade, which was actually kind of insane because my original score for this movie was 58%, so my second viewing was much better than the first. What about you guys though? What are your thoughts on Insidious 2? Leave them in the comment section down below, and as for YouTube, you guys know what to do. Hit that like, subscribe button, and bell to be notified when I come out with my next review. And until then, peace out!
Dave examines movies, we just watch for fun. Davey is the expert, he is the #1 critic that I go to when I need a movie.